Hello, 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 and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jameelah, and I am a master manifester, and I'm sure you are too. If you're watching content like this, the name of this channel, the new name of this channel is Manifesting Magic the Practical Way. And I have a video about why I changed the name of it too, so you can check that out a couple of days ago, I think. And today, um, I want to discuss the big question of, is trauma only in your mind? Well, I'm here to tell you that the answer is a big, fat, resounding no, right? This question kind of came to me, I guess yesterday maybe. I got a text message, and the person was asking whether or not suffering was a choice. And I'm like, well, yeah, suffering's always a choice. And they were like, well, outside of like physical pain and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, even with physical pain, suffering is an action of the mind, right? The pain is there, the thing happened, the feelings are there, the emotions are there, but the struggling with that is always a choice. And then so some people look at that and say, oh wow, are you saying that I'm struggling in life because I'm choosing to struggle? And kind of, yeah. So this is with everything, right? So say you're a person that's low on money all the time, right? And everything is just enough to get everything done, just enough food, just enough. And you find yourself struggling through the emotions that you have attached to just having enough, right? Well, the thing of just having enough is a common condition. A lot of people go through it. So many people are going through it with a smile on their faces. So many people are going through it leaning on their faith. So many people are going through it and knowing that it's only for a season and that it's going to change. But there are some people that are going through it who find it impossible and who find deep, deep, deep suffering going through the process. So when I say suffering as a choice, it's a choice that we unconsciously make. But once we realize we're choosing it, we can then um, choose to be more content with whatever circumstances or environment that we find ourselves in, right? And so this is of course about life or everyday life, things like that. When there are extreme circumstances, I'm going to be the first one to say I've suffered. I've chosen to suffer through extreme circumstances that I felt were extreme to me, which to the next person they may have not been extreme. So you always have to keep that into perspective. Like what you're experiencing is not always what everybody else is getting out of any situation. So is trauma only in your mind? Yes. No. No, it is no. Trauma is not only in your mind. And this is how I know that. I have a story about, it's a quick story about I can think when I was about 5 years old, we went to someone's, a pool in an apartment complex, right? And that was when that thing kind of was fancy. Like if you lived in an apartment complex that had a pool, like we lived in a house growing up, and I was like, oh, that's so boring. I wish we lived in apartments. Now that I'm older, I realize probably not. That's probably why I enjoy my childhood so much, because I played in a giant yard and I discovered things. I got dirty every day and all that kind of stuff. Swung on trees and climbed trees, all the fun stuff. But I remember we went to someone's house and they had a pool. And I remember my mom saying, well, y'all can only hang on this side, right? Because nobody could swim. My mom couldn't, I didn't come from anybody who it was even anywhere around pools or anything like that, who did anything besides splash in water. And she was like, oh, we can go to the pool, but you can only soak your feet in. That's what she would always say. You can soak your feet. And so like I grew up thinking that was enough, just put your feet in the water, you're good, whatever. But I remember being about 5 or 6 years old. We were allowed to get in the pool for whatever reason that day. And I got in and I was like in 3 feet deep water. And I literally was probably too short to either misstep or sucked in some water or something. I literally started gagging and choking and essentially drowning in the pool, and like nobody could see, nobody really noticed, right? I think it was my oldest brother who noticed, and like, I think Jameelah's choking or whatever, so she's whatever, drowning or whatever people would say. And like that was my first experience in water that for me as a 5 or 6 year old was very deep, right? And I can't really remember specific details, but when I think about it, there's always a flash of like water and gurgling and like trying to get to the top and not reaching it. And then so fast forward 15, so stayed away from water my whole life for that, only soak my feet in. I stayed away from water my whole life until I was about, for the next decade, I guess, or whatever, until I was about 15 or 16 years old. I was visiting a friend's house, and they were all swimmers, the whole entire family. Their mom used to be a lifeguard or whatever. They were also kids that grew up in our fellow religious community. And so I went over there to go hang with them, and their dad was living in an apartment complex, so I had a pool, and I was so excited. And so when I went there, the guys at the pool, the teenagers, they were all throwing everybody in, right? And they threw in my friend, and they were like, "Ah, no," whatever, like that. And, they get in. It's like 6 feet deep water. But I was like, "Oh, nobody's going to throw me in. People don't do that. They know everybody can't swim, right?" Well, most of these kids know how to swim. And I was just like, okay, well, they're doing that, right? And I remember saying, "I can't swim, I can't swim." And I remember my friend saying, "She can't swim, she can't swim." I had to be about 15. It feels like 15 is the exact number. And the boys threw me in the water anyway. And let me tell you, it was like all of my fears wrapped up into one. I went down in that water in 6 feet. And for some reason, I just panicked and I started flailing, couldn't get up, sucked in a whole gang of water. I mean, crazy. The lifeguard there, who barely worked, so he kind of hung out. He was like, "Oh, wait, I got work to do." He came and jumped over and grabbed me. And then on the side of the pool, he started banging on my back and all that while I was sitting on the edge or whatever. My bathing suit top had come off, mortified, 15 years old. And he was next to the pool and he was like, banging on my back, right? And I couldn't breathe. All I could do was suck in more air, but nothing was coming out. I was so afraid. And finally he hit one last time and like all this water just dumped out of my nose and my mouth. And I was crying. Like I was like, right? Never again. So fast forward, 15 years later is when it became extremely important for me to learn how to swim. I was like, I have children now. I was like, I can't possibly raise them without teaching them how to swim. That's just not, staying away from water is just not acceptable. What if they find themselves in water one day and don't know what to do with their bodies, right? So the fact that their dad was a swimmer was great because he made sure he taught them. But I even still sent them to swimming classes every summer, off like when they were like 4 years old all the way to like 10 or something, because it was just, and they were like, "We already know how to swim." And I'm like, "You can learn other things." Because I was so paranoid about having kids that couldn't handle themselves in the water. And they also had a pool at their granny's house. She had a pool in the backyard. And they also have a pool at my mom's house in the backyard. These children have had access to pools, and it's really about access for a long time. And so that's when I decided I needed to get over this fear. And one of the biggest things I noticed about going to the swimming class, and I know the story might be long-winded, but it all makes sense, was the fact that I thought my trauma was simply in the fact that my mind wasn't able to wrap its head around being able to be okay in water, especially water I could stand up in, right? And so when I went to the swimming class, this is not the first time. I tried a swimming class when I was about 27. The lady was like pushing me in the water, "Move your legs like this." And I was like, "Ah!" I went twice, never went back. Did another again with another guy. And he was just like, first day, he was like, "Hold your hands over your nose, dip." And I was like, "Dude, I can't even stand with my face in the shower. And you want me to just dip under this water?" Right? So people that have never learned how to swim is very different than people that have trauma with swimming. Very different, right? Because adults who never had trauma can do it really quickly. I've watched it. But if you've had trauma wrapped around it, there's a certain amount of spiritual and mental work that has to be done. And it's also in your body. So to answer that question, no, trauma is not just in your mind, it's in your body. On the first day of this class with this swim instructor who was also in the Olympics in the 70s when apartheid was happening, and his team was not able to go to the Olympics because of apartheid in South Africa. So he's since moved to this country and he was still teaching. He's like a 70-something-year-old man, but I mean, amazing personality. He's like, "We're not getting in the water today." On the first day, we all had on our bathing suits and stuff. And it was so encouraging. There were so many other adults who had not learned how to swim for all kinds of different reasons. One guy was like 6'6", and he said that he was always able to stand up in the pool, so he never learned how to swim. He would just take his feet up and all. But then he realized, he's like, "I don't even know how to swim. I just walk in the deep end." And so one guy was like from a place in India where there was no access to like regular pools and big, things like that. And so he was just like, "We just didn't learn." And another person could swim, but he wanted to become more comfortable in large bodies of open water. So it was all kind of reasons. One girl was going to the Navy, 19, never learned. She was swimming the first day. She didn't have any fear. It was nice. But what he sat down first was work with the trauma that was in our bodies. Because he was like, it's not enough to get in the water and know what to do and know how to do it. He said, what you really have to work on is not panicking, right? And he was like, what people don't realize is that your body holds memories that your mind has let go of in so many instances. So like I'm saying, I cannot remember what it was like to almost drown in those instances. I can only tell the story from a hindsight perspective, but my body, it knows, right? When I'm in water that starts to feel anywhere remotely to what I felt in those two major incidents in my life, accident, with the getting in the water, it automatically brings me to that space of I have to go, you're okay. You're okay. Your body has memory. You have memory. Let your memory win today. You're okay. You're okay. Right? And so my daughters don't even know that. Like they see me swim around the pool now. And I remember when they were little, they would go, let's do cannonball. And I'm like, cannonball? Do they know who I am? No, they didn't. So, I mean, I would do it. I'd be like, you're okay. It's 6 feet of water. Worst case scenario, swim to the edge. You're okay. And I remember cannonballing it. And they made me more courageous in that area. And so now I can easily, swim a pool and, get up and down. I don't have the skill set that I want to have yet. That's what I want to learn. But I can be okay in water that goes over my head. I can turn over and float if I need to breathe or something like that. And so these are the things that I needed to understand. And so doing it more often and doing it more regularly, while my brain understood it, my body was able to connect a new memory to what it means to be in the water, right? So now my body connects the memory of being in water with fun. It connects it with courage. It connects it with feeling confident, right? But for a long time, my body with water experiences was connected with fear, was connected with death, was connected with not being able to breathe, suffocation, no freedom. And so you have to know that even though sometimes we conquer these things in our head, that our body is its own machine too. It's got its own memory. That's why the saying always goes, mind, body, and spirit, mind, body, and soul, or whatever you're talking about, because your mind is one thing, your body is another, and then your spirit is another. So you can attack things in the spiritual and fix it there. Because I did. I fixed the attachments that I had spiritually, the soul tie that I had spiritually to the negative experience. And my mind, it knows, it's logical, it's factual, it's rational. It's like, if you know how to move your body and breathe correctly, turn your head, you will be okay. All you have to do is spin on your back. If you get tired, breathe. It knows, my mind. But I never focused on the body aspect of it until much later. And then that's when I was able to have more control over it. This is where the anxiety happens, right? This is where the anxiety hits. It's not in the other places. Your spirit doesn't get anxious. Your mind can get worried, but your body gets the anxious feelings and the panic, right? So yes, trauma is not only in the mind, trauma is in the body too. And that's why we spend so much time connecting with our spiritual, because that's the most pure part of ourselves that's not necessarily affected by the other outside aspects of the world, like the mind and the body, right? And so that's important for me to know and just get across, right? Trauma can be deep, deep, deep inside your body, and sometimes we don't know it, especially if you had something negative happen with different groups of people, or if you had something negative happen with an animal. I know a lot of people like, so, okay, I'm not really an animal person. I mean, I enjoyed riding horses. I like looking at animals, but I'm not one of those people that want to sleep with animals in my bed. I've just never been like that. And I always, I just was not, I like cats. Little cats are very cute to me, but I probably would never, ever have a dog. I'm just not that person. But I'm not afraid of dogs in any sense of it. I have a friend who has a dog that's the size of a horse. And that dog doesn't bother me one bit. What I don't like is when he comes and lays his head on my lap or tries to eat food off my plate. I'm just not into that, right? And so it's not a fear thing, but I've been with adults who see dogs and like they tense up. And they immediately get nervous and anxious and all. And I'm just like, oh, so there's a difference, right? So I could learn to be around a dog. I've dated people that had dogs and been comfortable. A lot of friends had dogs and I'm not uncomfortable. It's just my choice for my own space. But I've seen adults that's just like, no way. Are there dogs in the house? They run the other way. They're not playing, right? And so you have to remember that logically, this dog is not going to do you anything. In your brain, you know that, right? Spiritually, well, you're a lion spiritually, right? You're everything. You're all that spiritually, but your body has this tense reaction to it that you have to pay a close attention to and be honest about. And then, and then you can solve the issues of trauma that goes beyond your mind, right? Oh, I hope that wasn't that long. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoying this day. And remember, attack that trauma in the body, because most of the time, a lot of our leftover trauma, even the stuff we know better than, it's just in our bodies. And we need to focus on that part. Yoga is a good place for me for that. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.